we whistled.
Is there something going on here today?
There she is.
Hi.
Thank you, and goodbye. You guys have enough room down there?
Yes, I think so.
Is everybody? Wow, I'm like the only man on this panel. What the hell happened?
There's men out there.
There's a naked guy with a cape walking around there. I don't know. Hi, how are you? Nice talking to you. Maybe it was King Ding Dong. I'm not sure. Okay. So this is voice acting for games. Is that right? Am I correct in my assumption?
Yes.
Okay, goodbye. Why don't we go down the line? We can introduce ourselves a little bit, and we can talk a little bit about what we do, and then you guys can ask us some questions. How's that sound? I've just become the commentator.
I know.
I have no idea why.
He moderates too.
I am the moderator here. Do you want to start, Jen?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jen Cohn. I was the voice of Ursa in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Zuko and Azula's mom. And I was the voice of Lord Zash / Darth Zash in Star Wars: The Old Republic. And I'm best known as the voice of Farah in Overwatch.
Erika Harlacher. I am also a voice actress, I guess you probably knew. As far as video games go, some of the ones I've been in are, I play On in Persona 5. I was in Fallout 4, Killer Instinct as Sagira, Kingdom Hearts 3 as various people. Very exciting. So, thank you.
Hi there, how are you? Yes. I've been doing this for over 35 years. I started out doing games, and it was before a lot of people were even playing them. I did Jade Cocoon 1 and 2. Anybody know that one? Good. It's a great. I know it was early. I did. What were those other games I did? I always do this to him. Because,
I don't know.
what were they called? Anyhow, I'll forget those. But I directed a bunch and voiced a bunch, and was also in all the Jade Cocoons. And then recent Godzilla. Let me see.
Did you do like some mafia game or something?
Oh, True Crimes Hong Kong.
Two guys played that.
I'm so bad at this. I need a crib sheet. What was it? Oh, Blue Dragon. I played a bunch of characters in Blue Dragon, and Sylphid. I was in that one also. So those are a few of that. I'm sorry I can't tell you the characters. I did numerous characters in all of those.
Yes. I'm Richard Epcar. I'm very tired. I'm Raiden in Mortal Kombat. And Ansem in Kingdom Hearts. And Akuma in Street Fighter V. To name just a few, I've kind of thought about the games. There's a lot of games. I've done a lot of games actually over the years. So we'll just stick with the games. So anyway, that's who we are, and we're going to talk a little bit about, should we talk about our process or that sort of thing, or? Sure. I'm going to start real quick and just say, you know, I think a lot of people don't realize that when we do these games, that we oftentimes, most of the time, don't see the script until we're actually in the booth. So people don't realize this, but we don't have time to work on a role and do all that stuff. We basically have to cold read a performance, which is really a very difficult for a lot of actors to do that. And when you do this kind of work a lot, that's really kind of what is expected of you, to basically just jump in there and create a character and make a performance out of thin air. So it's actually not so easy, but we do it somehow.
Yeah, and that's why to really get into video games, it's very akin to stage acting. And so it helps to have a really good acting background, because then you understand the largeness of it, of the characters, and because you're going into the booth and you have to do it immediately, you have to have the acting muscle in place so that you go, oh, this character, this character, this character. And of course you lend nuance to them, but you have to jump it right in as if you had rehearsed for 6 weeks.
Right, we have a new member. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell them a little about yourself.
Well, I just jumped
Hold the
right
mic
in.
down so they can hear you.
I just jumped right in. I think this is on. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Is it on? Oh, there we go. So as Ellyn was saying, sometimes you just jump right into situations as if you were here and fully rehearsed. Hi guys, I am Stephanie Panisello. I am a voice and performance capture actress, and you guys might know me as Claire Redfield in Resident Evil 2. I apologize for being late. I was just doing some autographs and some pictures, and I decided to stay a little bit later than I should have. So I am sorry for being late, but I was just trying to share some love with all you guys.
All right, we were just, to catch you up, we were just starting to talk about a little bit of the work we do in voice
And
acting
process.
games. So, you want to jump in?
You want to go?
Sure. Well, on that, where we don't even see the script, a lot of times once we get in there, we also don't see the other characters' lines at all. I've been in game sessions where they just have my characters' lines all in a row.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. So I can't even see like the context of like who I'm talking to or like what the conversation is. You just have to really trust that the director knows what they're doing and knows what everything's gonna sound like when it's all put together. And it goes really fast. You just go right down the list, and if they like it, they don't usually say anything. You just hear a beep and you keep going. Yeah.
And hope for the best.
And adding on that, there sometimes are times where you have your list of lines that you don't know what they are. They're just all non sequiturs, and you don't know what you're responding to. And you don't know what the character looks like. And you don't know what their body is like. And you have no idea what the creators of this game or this character were envisioning when they were envisioning it. And I mean, oftentimes when you're recording voice lines, the creators do have some sort of picture in their head of what they want, but don't necessarily communicate that. So you have to find a character sort of flying blind in the booth on go time, which can be really thrilling and exciting, and also can be like a little nerve-wracking if there's a lot of pressure, or if it's a voice director who isn't good at coaxing things out of you. It can get a little hairy, but it's really fun and really creative and really exciting, and it's fun to flex those muscles and stretch out in there.
Yeah, I would agree, you know, piggybacking on all that, I completely agree with all that. I also think, you know, depending on, which I'm sure you guys do this too, when we don't get a lot of information, we're like, so what's happening? I mean, my thing is like, I'm always asking questions. Like, I'm probably the queen of asking questions. I'm like, so what's happening? Who are we talking to? What's going on? Did I eat? Am I hungry? What happened? What am I wearing? So I try to ask as much as possible to kind of get into it. But definitely having a visualization of, like, when you actually get to see your character, that plays a big part, because then you're able to kind of decide what that person's going to be like and all those mannerisms. But a lot of those are on the fly. And the on the fly ones, like you guys said, you got to just use all the things that you probably have been working with in the past and hope for the best. But there are a lot of projects where we do get to have a lot of information, and there are some, you know, certain I guess, game developers and creators that will come in and be very specific, who will sit down and tell you the long, elaborate story of everything that's happening and all the different things, and who knows, maybe the archetype of they decided to wear red because red meant this thing, and then you look at your lines and you've got like 20 lines and you're just making a bunch of effort sounds, you know? So that happens too on the other side.
That's my favorite thing when you get an audition and they give you like 12 pages of description of the character and he's got 3 lines. It's like, ugh.
Or what they'll do is they'll give you 3 lines and they'll say, do it like she's being impinged upon a flame, or do it like she's being punched. Do it like she's giving the punch. Do it like she's
Drinking some punch.
drinking. So they have you do the same lines, all with different intentions.
But context always helps a lot when you know what's going on. And if you have a good director, they can kind of tell you what's going on in the scene, and that helps the way, you know, for example, if your line is, come in, sit down, you're going to do that differently if your father just died. You're going to do that differently if you just won the lotto. So it makes a big difference on how you deliver the line. Did I what?
Did you win the lotto?
He did by marrying you.
Did I? Good save. Yeah, good save.
I just wanted to know because if you knew something that I didn't know, I wanted to know.
No, honey, I didn't win the lotto at all. Why would you?
I don't know, honey, what you got in the wallet.
I did not.
It's a surprise
That was
venue.
close. But anyway, it really helps a lot. And there's some wonderful directors out there. There's also some really piles of crap that you have to work with. So, you know, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and efforts is one of those where, so we call them efforts, is all of those sounds that you have when certain things are doing. Like you may be like, oh, you're gonna pick up this, you know, bottle of water. Well, in a video game or an animation or any of that stuff, you make a sound when you pick up a bottle of water, right? So, but you don't want it to be, right? Now, would that be the picking up the bottle of water would be like,
Yeah.
Yours was better.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer the other ones personally because it was a bottle of water. So, but that's something that really plays into effect. Like, what is it that I'm picking up? What exactly is happening? You know, there's a difference. Like, for instance, in the game that I got to voice in with Claire Redfield, for instance, like it was like, okay, you're being attacked by a zombie. Okay, well, where did the zombie get me? Did the zombie bite me on my shoulder? Did the zombie bite me on my stomach? Did the zombie bite me on my neck? And is there literally blood gurgling into my throat? All of those things matter, and that's going to make a difference on how you're going to go ahead and vocalize that. So, I'm trying to think what other random fun.
You're trying to think of where else the zombie could bite you.
Yeah. Well, the zombie pretty much has bitten me everywhere at this point in the game. So yeah, I don't know if that was appropriate to say, but. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the vocalization for stuff's a big deal, and it's also just there's a lot of random. What I actually like is those random lines that are actually very important, and you do them in ADR sessions, and then you didn't know they were super important until they're in the game, and then you're like, oh, that's what that was for, and you just hope that they take the one take that fits the best there, so that's why it's questions for everything when you're in a session. So, and did you guys touch up on like different techniques and stuff and things that's good, like jumping into a booth? I know I'm so late, I'm sorry.
We just started like right before you got.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Seconds before.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So then, what about warm-ups? I don't know about you guys, but I know warming up before, because this is all about, VO, right? One thing that I know that I've noticed with people when they ask me is like, well, first off, one big one is, oh, I can sound like so-and-so. I can do this particular thing. And one thing I always tell people is know your voice first. Don't be somebody else first. Be you first. Because that's what they actually want, is going to be you. So if you're able to work on your acting chops first, that's where you want to go, and and you want to know your voice first. Once you do that and you master that, you're going to be able to create different nuances as to who that character is. Whether that character, is really spunky, that could be your voice in the spunky version of you. Whatever that may be, but know who you are first, then go ahead and progress into your different character voices, because there's some people that have a very large range as far as character-y voices goes, and then there's people that have a really awesome career in just their voice. So start there first. That's one of my first pointers, but.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a good pointer. Oh, that is a good point. That's a very good pointer. I think I kind of did the opposite of that, though. But I think that would have been very good advice for me to get. Like, that would have been really excellent guidance in the beginning of my career, because I was so consumed when I started with voices and accents. I had been a stage actress, and I wasn't an ingenue, so I was always being cast older, I was being cast Latina, I was being cast as something, like I always had to do some sort of grand dame, etc. crazy accent for everything I did. So when I started in voiceover, it was always just this breadth of range, and that was how initially I was being marketed and marketing myself as range. And of course, a bunch of the voices that have stuck the most essentially come back to just being versions of me, much like what you said. Yes, I've done a whole bunch of range of things, and I've done a bunch of Grand Theft Autos, and when you do those, I do all the radio shows for all the Grand Theft Autos, and that's really fun because you have to do these over-the-top characters in the radio shows. It's super, super fun. And so that's not like getting into depth of character each time. You just have to sort of, wiggle around and do something fun. But when you're going to be going back to a character, if you can figure out a way to find them to be essentially you, it's helpful to slip back into that character.
That's actually the thing I like most about voice acting, because you can be any character that you can imagine vocally, and I think that's the fun part for me. To me, in many ways, it's more creative than doing on camera or stage a lot of times, because a lot of times on camera particularly, you're relegated to the way you appear. Mm-hmm. If you look at a lot of television actors, for the most part, they're basically playing themselves, and even if you see them on different shows, they're basically playing themselves in another show, But the thing that I love about voice acting is you can be any character that you can imagine vocally, and to me, that's it's really almost more creative and fun.
Thrilling.
Actually, when you first start out, what you need to have is what I call the money voice. That's the voice that you're going to be cast as most of the time. That's where you're going to make your money. But what happens is when you're in the studio and they realize that you have range, like Jen was talking, then what happens is then you get to play. I mean, some of my favorite things are where I get to do multitude of characters, and I get to be the little girl. I get to be the old lady. I've even done truck drivers. That doesn't sound good.
I think it's good to go around town telling people.
Don't repeat it. What comes to Otakon stays in it. No, but I have a huge range, and it's fun when you can play with your voice like it's a musical instrument, and you can find the pitch. And depending upon the way you stand, the way you hold your head, the way you hold your neck, where you place your voice through your nose,
the way you wear your hat.
Then you can find nuance in your voice, and it's a lot of fun. And as you know, you're on instrument, you can play around and find all these things, accents and tonal changes and pitch, and that's a lot of fun. And generally it happens because, especially as women, I I mean, you and Stephanie have what I call the young heroine voices.
Thank you.
And
She's on heroin? What'd you say?
what comes to Otakon stays in Otakon.
What kind of bar are you running?
But it's like,
It means everyone's just addicted to our voices.
yeah. But it's like Jen and I, because we have deeper voices, it's a lot more challenging because what happens, I'm going back to my panel Women in Anime, but what happens in games and in anime is there is a plethora of male voices, and there's much less for women. Of course, he doesn't know. But, and if you have the young, tiny girl voices, then those are voices that, there's the girlfriend, there's the lead girl, maybe she has a couple of friends, that's it. You have no other women. So what happens for us is that we have to have a lot of range so that we can be more competitive. So, anyhow, that's my 2 cents about that.
Should we take some questions from the
Yeah, let's
You guys
do
have some questions for us? All right. Yeah,
Oh, there's a
why don't you
microphone.
guys line up?
Check. Everybody line up behind me.
Oh, there's speakers. Nice.
How you doing?
Don't run or shove or anything.
All right. I'm Stat, so you're up first.
She's almost done.
Hello.
So obviously, you said, go for your money voice, go for the voice that is you.
Yes.
And then you work around that. Would you recommend improv? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yes, improv is, I think if you have the ability to improv, you are more likely to, one, influence possibly even the script, because you might get to play more, because the writers and the directors love to see that. So if you can add more to it, they want that.
give me something, go.
Yeah.
One of my first thoughts, I remember I did this hilarious DirecTV ad campaign years ago, and so the casting was that they needed it to be a Russian voice. Does anyone remember that DirecTV, the ad campaign with opulence, I has it, with there was a mini giraffe? Okay, so they wanted a female Russian person. So when the director's talking to me about this, but instead of me just saying like, oh, I can do Russian, I said like, okay, are we talking babushka? Are we talking like coked up model? Are we talking like what are we going for? And we totally went coked up model. That was like exactly the way to go. But so forget cable. Forget cable. Forget DirecTV with access free. Like so, it was so like hysterical. And so, but we got to play. So if you're able to very quickly on the fly say like, what exactly are we doing? It makes it much more fun.
Yeah, a lot of like auditions ask you to improv in the audition too. And they'll ask for people with improv experience. So improv, I think, is like the #1 important thing. Obviously, all acting training is important to be an actor, but improv, I feel like, is kind of the most important skill you can learn. Yeah.
I think the most important skill is acting classes, and that covers improv, it covers voice or yoga, whatever you can do to make your instrument more fluid. Shakespeare even, because Shakespeare demands great specificity in the voice and punctuation. And I think all of that helps. So whatever you can do with the voice classes, singing classes, learning the breath, learning how to speak on the breath, those are all important.
You know, another thing I wanted to add, not talking about improv, but games in general, not all games, it depends on the game, but games are not reality. They're heightened reality. They're a little bigger than life. So a lot of times we'll get people in there, I direct a lot of stuff too, and a lot of times we'll get in television actors or film actors, and they'll be very, very natural, and they'll be... I think my wife is broken. But they'll be acting with their eyes, and I always say to them, you know, the mic can't pick up your eyes.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, so we need to hear it, and that's why Ellyn said it's more akin to theater in certain ways. It is. It's a little bigger than life. And once again, not always. It depends on the project, and sometimes they want you to be very natural, very real. So it just depends on what it is, but for the most part, it's a heightened reality. You know.
And I would say one other, just to, since we were talking about pointers on things to do, I'm a big firm believer in live life too. That's the big one, because if you haven't lived, if you literally do nothing most of your day, there's not going to be much for you to pull from sometimes too. So if you can have certain experiences, go ahead and do it. If you're a big Lara Croft fan, go take a rock climbing class, go outside into the outdoors, because if you want to play that role one day, make sure you have something, at least, I think personally, to pull from in that. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
well, as you see, it takes us 3 hours to answer one question.
Let's see if I can break a record with that.
All right.
A lot of you have characters that are just iconic. They'll hear the name Erika Harlacher and they'll think Otakon. They'll hear Ryan and think Richard Epcar. But as you said, a lot of those characters you went into cold, with very little prep or knowledge beforehand.
Not in Mortal Kombat, though. They were very, very well prepared, and they knew what they're doing, and they're really on top of that.
Compare that to animation, where there's pre-existing material to go off of. With anime, you have the Japanese to go off of. How is it that you become attached and become so iconic to those characters when the voices are recorded months in advance, as far as I know, and you didn't hear the final product until the game was released? With anime, you're doing it week after week, and you're constantly exposed to the character. But with games, it's one and nothing else. How does it become so iconic to be attached to the characters, like Lara, with Claire, with Anna?
Each job is a different experience, and there are no general statements that you can make. Some characters are ongoing, some characters are a one-off. It's all different. So I did Gundam Unicorn for 5 years.
Stop doing it.
And so, it's all different. Sometimes they cast you and you don't remember the voice because it was so long ago, as a matter of fact.
Or you're doing other stuff.
Yeah, you're doing other stuff, and the voice has a specific pocket. There was one job I got many years ago, and he said to me, "Ellyn, do the beautiful voice." I said, "Which beautiful voice?" "You know, Ellyn, the beautiful voice." And so we tried.
Was this a voice coming from the closet or something?
It felt like it. It felt like it. So I tried a couple of times in He Who Will Be Remain Nameless. Anyhow, he said, "Ellyn, we can't find the beautiful voice. You're fired." But it has a good ending that you have all benefited from, because I said, this is totally unfair. I've done it. This audition happened 6 months ago when I was cast. I don't know what tone you're looking for. And so, the beautiful voice. And so I started something that is now routine and is done across the board in every state where there is dubbing, where there's ADR, that you have a sample of what your audition was. And so that when you go in, you have that sample to listen to.
That's so Ellyn, I didn't know that was you originated. Yeah, that's so important.
I've asked for it. I had no idea that someone had to make that
It was
happen.
because I
in order
couldn't
for it
find
to-
a beautiful voice.
Right? Wow.
That's industry standard
That's
now.
amazing.
So-
Yeah,
And
always.
she still to this day doesn't know what the hell the beautiful ways are.
I'm looking.
So your question was, are you talking about like one single game, or like when we reprise the same character in like something later?
It's more along the lines of characters that have become iconic to you as a voice actor. When they hear your name, they think of those characters. But with video games, they're recorded months prior, and you don't hear anything about them until the game's release, but they become attached to you. How is it you became attached to characters that you spent apparently little time on with little prep after the fact?
Well, okay, so you used Persona 5 on for me. We spent a long time recording Persona 5. So I went in not knowing what the game was or what the character was or anything. But then in that first session, they were like, all right, here's the lowdown, here's what she is, let's start. And then we didn't stop recording for like 6 months for that game. It was a lot. I don't know if you guys know, but it's quite a long game. It's very, very long, like 110 hours.
back and did more stuff.
Yeah, and we've done multiple other games. So we've done the dancing spin-off, and now we're doing Persona 5 Royal. So it just keeps, I haven't stopped being on for like years. So I think that's probably why since it was such a long game, and the game itself was a good game. So it connected with a lot of people, and that meant more people heard the performance, and so maybe that's why it became more of like, oh, that's her thing. But we definitely, that wasn't one where I spent like a little time on it. We spent a ton of time on that. And then, I guess we kept it a secret for a while from all of you. But yeah, does that kind of answer your question?
More or less, the question was poorly worded.
Sorry.
I'm trying to think.
I
Was
know.
there a question in there? I'm not sure.
I know, I wasn't sure exactly. I think that part of the answer to the question, if I understand the question, first it's good casting. I think that it's really good casting when I mean, they know that you're going to be getting into the booth with no background, no backstory, whatever. But they hear something in your audition, or they know you as a voice actor, and when they bring you in, they know that you will somehow be able to nail something integral in this character. Like, I had done a bunch of voices for World of Warcraft, so Andrea Toyas at Blizzard knew me. And so when they were putting together Overwatch, Nefaro was one of the first 4 characters, when they were putting it together, she asked for an audition from me. And at the time, the game had a code name, and Farah had a code name, and I was given no background information other than that she was Middle Eastern, and it was a first-person shooter, and she was aggressive, and they gave me these very aggressive lines, and so I immediately assumed she was a villain, and I did this total villain audition. And when you're a voice actor, you do a lot of auditions every day, and you send them in, and you promptly forget about them. And I forget about them immediately. You could ask me what I auditioned for this morning, and I have no idea what I did.
I forget about them while I'm doing them.
I mean, so 6 months later, when I got a call that I booked a game called Overwatch and a character called Farah, and I had a session on my birthday, I went like, oh, okay, great, but dude, I never auditioned for that. I have no idea what that is. I didn't, and they said, no, you did. I said, no, I totally didn't audition for this. This is a mistake. They got the wrong person. And I always like to say, Jen Cohn is like the John Smith of Jewish girls. So I assumed there must be some Jen Cohn who's in LA and is a voiceover actress, and they confused our auditions. So when I ended up at the session, and I had Jeff Kaplan from Blizzard, and Michael Chu, our head writer, and Andrea in the cans, I told them all it was a mistake, and I was the wrong Jen Cohn, and they had done it. They said, no, it was me. And they played the villain audition. And I remember doing this villain audition, and they said, but she's not a bad guy, she's not a villain. Think of her as the Captain America of the game. And that was the day that we really nailed the voice. Like, we worked on it, and they showed me an animatic, and then I got to see what she looked like and how she moved, and that's how we figured it out. But Andrea Toyas was the one who, through the villain, through the other work I had done, knew that I would be the person to do this. So ultimately, I think it goes back to the casting.
So, in my perspective of it, so I like to play video games. So I come from the gamer side. I'm a fan of all of the culture. So when I came in for Resident Evil 2, I didn't know what it is. However, once I went ahead and actually looked at the script, and it's like this very iconic, like, don't shoot! I'm like, oh, this is a dialogue between Claire Redfield and Leon, duh. So I figured it out pretty quickly on. For me, it's just like detective work. Sometimes when I see certain auditions, I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds sort of familiar. And then I just literally start typing in a few things, find it on the internet, walk in, and I'm like, I know exactly what this is. So I'm all about the detective work and trying to figure it out, depending on what the audition is and what it is, right? So that's a big thing for me personally. Now, as far as the iconic side of it goes, I had something obviously to play with the original RE2. However, I wanted to give her something different, right? So the Claire, I think that we all know and love, was always a BA. I was actually allowed to say the word bad, ASS, in my other panel, so I just want to make sure I'm being fair here. But anyways, so she was a BA, but I wanted to add a little something to her and make her my own. So all of the cuss words, that was all me, you're very welcome, and I was trying to add to that. Now, once the game came out, because I had to keep my mouth shut, so it was about 2.5 years that we worked on the game, on and off throughout, and we had the ADR sessions, which of course was a lot of performance capture, but within the ADR sessions, that's when we would do all the stuff that was the actual gameplay stuff, and kind of worked on all that stuff, and then it went silent, and it was E3 showing on Sony, I think it was. I was freaking out. I didn't know when it was going to show, what was going to happen, and all that. And then I had to keep my mouth shut until it dropped in January. So you have to be in NDA mode. Did I remember my Claire through that process? Absolutely. This is Claire Redfield we're talking about, okay? First off, so I think with certain characters, we are gonna love them and we're gonna not forget those. Then there's other characters that are a bit smaller characters that we may not fully remember exactly what voice, but I think we'll always remember the essence of that character.
So it's the reputation of the character and the time you spent on it that really bonds you to that character as a voice actor.
I think so. And you know what? That's where it comes back to, oh yeah, so with Ellyn, like Ellyn was saying, that's why the acting classes make a big deal. Because if you are really approaching your scenes, like if you actually get a scene and you're really approaching it from the perspective of who this character is and all of that stuff, you won't forget that stuff. That's the stuff that you'll latch onto. You may forget the voice, but you won't forget who that character is. So
That's really good.
yeah.
You broke your record.
You know what, guys? We're gonna have to
we got a long
speed
line here,
along
so
this.
we
We've
kinda
got
have
a long
through this a little
Oh my
bit.
goodness, a lot of questions.
Okay. Yeah.
So if we could all,
Yeah, we'll
Yeah, it might be quick.
give quick, concise answers. How's that? Go ahead.
Okay, let's see. All right. So, how hard is it to really keep a secret when you guys have to sign the NDAs, especially since most of, not all of the video games, they don't tell you when you can announce it, and so you're having to wait for that release date to say anything.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
It's
not fun. That's so
And
why
I hate NDAs.
I mean,
Lawyers
I
should
don't
destroy this business.
think it's hard, but it's not as fun to keep a secret.
I worked with the CIA.
you know what? It's very easy to keep a secret because if you break the secret, you're out of the game.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I literally got an NDA the other day that I signed, and a lot of times we don't even read the bloody thing because we get them all the time. But I'm actually reading this thing, and it says if you release any information on this game, they will fine you $1 million.
What?
And I said, good luck collecting that.
Yeah. Wow.
No, but Richard and I actually know somebody who is doing a game, and he released some PR about it. He was cut from the game.
Took him out and replaced him.
Yeah, so that's the threat.
I know. I think I know who you're talking about. As soon as like some company saw it, they're like, goodbye.
Yeah. So we love you guys when you ask us these questions, but we don't want to owe $1 million. So
Yeah.
and we like to keep our
You're
rules.
paying the $1 million, not me.
Every once in a while I see fans after something comes out get really mad because they're like, I asked them about that and they lied and said they didn't know anything. I'm like, yeah. We have to lie to you, I'm sorry.
Liar.
Yeah.
Work or freedom?
Right.
Yeah, there was a memory cast spell on that contract that we actually signed that made us forget.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I worked on that.
Yeah, then release date comes and we're like, oh, that's right, it wasn't that.
Yeah, cool.
I say get the lawyers out of the entertainment business, that's me. Yeah! Get them out. Get the lawyers
Next
out.
question. I think we've got to go to the next question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
You guys were talking about revisiting characters and things like that. Especially if there's like time in between or if you've been for a long time. Do you guys find yourselves refining the voice over time?
Sure.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Am I just making a yes/no question? Then I'm just making a yes.
Somebody let a goldfish in here. What the hell happened? Well, for me, I think the more time you spend with the character, the more you get to know the character. There's more nuances, particularly if there's good writing involved. They give you things about your character that maybe you didn't know in the beginning. So I think as it's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So yeah.
Well, like in your example, in your case, like say 80s Bato versus like modern Bato.
It was pretty much his voice.
Yeah, it was pretty much me, but I think Bato as a person has grown also, and I think he's changed and grown and gone to different places. And,
Or you've also got the
and it depends too.
You've got the two Batos. You've got the game and movie Bato, and then you've got the standalone Bato.
Well, it depends too, because like in the beginning, he was like in the first thing I did was the movie, and he was very serious in the movie. And then when we did the series, there was a lot more humor to his characters. He was a little bit different, yeah. So it depends on not only depends on the character, but it depends on the universe in which that character appears. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it's not so much refining, I would say, the voice per se. It's more the voice as in like the character's voice, if we're talking the other way. So like their mentality on things, their experience, their character, like if there's a character arc, that's where I think you're refining. It's not so much the voice. The voice will usually stay there unless some time has passed and they've gotten older. Maybe that's where, like, for instance, like let's say my Claire RE2, she's going to be young and, like from the beginning of the game, she doesn't know what the heck is going on, so she's going to seem very unaware of what's happening. As the game progresses, you're going to see the voice change a little bit and more, more determined, more sure of herself, more assertive in ways. So I think that's the way that the voice would change, but that's going to be more with like cadence and like if there's like an upturn, like if, or everything that you ask, like if it's a young character, is everything sound like it's a question? That's like a young character, but as they get older or more assertive, it'll drop at the end of the sentence and it'll be something that they're saying as, as an actual statement. So that might be something.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can make this as quick an answer as you want, but
No.
Yes.
when you were getting started, how did you approach marketing yourself? Throwing yourself and selling yourself, like throwing yourself into the industry like that.
With total desperation. Oh yes, postcards. Hi, I'm in a show. Come see my show. It's in the basement, underneath a church somewhere in the Bronx. It was like horrible. Oh my God, the total desperation. Yeah, I think that it's easier to be less desperate now just because social media and the internet and YouTube and all of those things are your tools in starting out now, and the cream does rise, and things that are great do get passed around, and things do go viral, and things can become sensations on their own, of their own merit. It isn't about you just sort of flailing in the wind, desperately hoping that somebody will, send their assistant to come see your terrible show somewhere. So it's definitely easier now to be noticed, I think.
Thank you.
Yes, you got it.
By the way, we had no marketing.
Yeah.
Zero marketing when we started. We started back in the early 80s, and we didn't even know that this was going to see the light of day.
Yeah.
So actually, there are so many roles that we did not put down. Like Robotech, I did tons of roles in that. I don't remember what I did. It was so long ago, and I didn't write it down.
I remember what I did.
Well, because you had one role. But as a woman, I covered a variety of roles. I don't remember, and we had no marketing. And it's only more recently, now with social media, that everybody's starting to market their stuff.
I think when you're starting out, you're more worried about just getting work and not marketing yourself per se. I think you're just preoccupied with getting work and trying to stay afloat and not starve to
Then
death.
you can just kind of spin, oh, I was this.
Yeah, then
I
as you build your
resisted
resume, you can
getting a Twitter
promote
for a
yourself.
long time, and then finally someone was like, you really should. And then I was like, fine, I got Twitter, and it's just like, la la la, I'm these things. And then I don't know, something happened.
Yeah, I had the same experience.
But what I've heard, and I've taken a couple of social media classes at SAG, and they have said Twitter is for politics, Facebook is for friends, and Instagram is for industry.
I don't know that that's true with the con world.
It is.
Twitter is
I would say Twitter.
the best for me.
Yeah, from my experience, I would say Twitter within the video game world, and then Instagram as well. I feel like Facebook is definitely for friends. But one thing I would also say for you first is take lots of classes. You're going to meet lots of people in your classes. Those are the people that you're going to want to know, because those people are going to come up as well. And just honestly focus on your craft. Don't worry about the marketing. Focus on your craft. That's where your time needs to be spent. You need to be the best, because what if you do get in that door? What if you do have all those followers and you can't actually show up when you show up into the booth? That's what matters most.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a great teacher who used to say, when the opportunity comes, just be ready.
Yeah.
Just be ready.
You gotta build the car before you can sell the car. You know what I'm saying?
As someone who goes to school for marketing, I take offense to that.
Well, after the fact, marketing is very, very important.
All right, so
As long as you're not a lawyer, it's okay.
So my question kind of lies along the lines of I guess the developers don't realize it's probably a lot harder than it probably seems, in the sense that since you play video game characters, video game acting is more than just reading lines on a script. You also have to do the grunts that you do in the video game and stuff like that. You said before that a lot of times you go into the stuff not knowing exactly who your character is or what kind of context you're going into. So my question is more along the lines of how does that play into that part as well? Especially with with your character, where you play a character was probably already dubbed in one language, and you're doing it in another language, and then there's characters you obviously just doing. You're the first person doing this line, and then it gets localized into other territories.
So the attacks and stuff?
Yeah, well, not even just that. They'll also have those random lines that aren't voiced, but then they have one little voice clip of you where your character's wait.
Oh, when text comes up and you're and that's all the voice that's for a long sentence.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that I really rely on the director to know exactly what text is gonna pop up, so that even though I'm not saying the exact line, it's something with kind of the same feeling of that line. Because yeah, in JRPGs a lot, they do that little shortcut where like, you only say like a word.
If you do like rated in like Mortal Kombat, like I can imagine there were runs and lines that you have to do are like way more than your average character, since you have to basically like, that's in your entire role for like 90% of what everyone hears for rated. It's going to be that, whatever he's yelling when he's flying forward towards the character.
Well, that particular thing is from the original arcade game. A lot of people don't realize that. That's just a sample thing that they brought from the arcade game. So that's not me, that's the original guy.
Oh really? That one voice
that weird thing. Thank God, I don't even want to do that. But you know, here's the deal: when you do these big games and they're fighting games, you're gonna have probably, if you're a main character, you're gonna have maybe even a half session or a full session where you're basically just going down, doing efforts and fighting and doing all this stuff, where you're just, you know, spending all the time, you know, doing the grunts and the efforts and getting hit and hitting. And you know, we have a script, and there'll be 3 sets of stuff where you're getting hit, and it's going to be a soft getting hit, and then you're getting hit harder, and then you're getting hit harder, and then it's the same thing where you're giving damage, and then you're, you know, that whole thing, and you just go through all the thing. You're getting kicked in the head, you're getting kicked in the groin, you're getting kicked in the ass, you're getting kicked, you know, everywhere. You're punched in the head. You're getting, you know, you have to have all these different things, because when they put the animation together, they have to have a reaction or effort to match that. So you have to make sure you basically have an entire palette, and you do that with every single game you do.
And with every character.
Yeah, with every fighting game you do. So it's kind of crazy.
So those usually take as long as like the actual lines, or
yeah, sometimes they do.
Really?
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of goes back to what you were saying with like the different zombie bites that you got.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like, where is it happening? And am I also on fire while a zombie is attacking me? Is the tyrant also there and I'm running but being attacked and on fire? I don't know. You know, there's multiple things that are happening. And then one other thing, so you were talking about efforts. It does matter how your efforts are done as a character. So like, for instance, with Claire, I can't have her being all whiny and like, oh my God! You know what I mean? Like, as like something's coming at her, you know? So that does all play into all of that. And that's still all within the acting world. Even though it's an effort, you're still acting. So, yeah.
I was doing a Spec Ops game one time, and it was basically the whole game. If you do any of those like Call of Duties or Spec Ops, you're basically just, you know, there's a grenade, or shoot the guy, or whatever. You're screaming all this crap over the gunfire and the tanks and all that crap. So I did this for like 6 hours, right? And then I was like, completely blew my throat out. And by the end of the day, the guy goes, oh, I saved the 10 best loops for the end of the day. I said, what are the 10 best loops? He said, we're going to burn you alive with a flamethrower. And we need 10 of these, 30 seconds long. I said, you need 10 of these? He goes, yeah, we need 10 of these. So, you know, and go. So basically, you're being burned alive by a flamethrower for, you know, 30 seconds, and you have to do that 10 times. And I basically really just completely blew my voice out doing that.
Well, I pity you. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
You don't pity me, really. You're lying.
All right, guys, we got just a couple minutes left.
So how can we do this? Let's do it real fast.
If we can get a couple of these people, if you can give them some ones and give them some quick fire questions, okay?
Quick fire.
Lady on, you're bringing the fire, so come on, let's go.
Woo! Lady on! Yeah!
Start the fire.
It's like I'm looking in a mirror.
I just have a quick question. What's it like to work on like fighting games?
Terrible.
It's screaming.
Next. Right. Yeah.
It's all screaming.
Nightmare.
No, that's great. It's fun.
Killer Instinct, I did like have to sit down because I got so dizzy recording for Killer Instinct. So, yay! Thank you.
I want to apologize earlier to her for so many times I got you on fire.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Seriously? That was you?
I picked you first.
Listen, no, I do appreciate. We got out though, standard mode or hardcore?
Just standard.
Just standard. Okay, please, let's not go hardcore then.
I was originally gonna do a voice myself, for you, but seeing how there's not much time, I'm going to try and do a Sean Connery voice, but from Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
I've been watching it so much.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think the best one. Trebek, I feel like I'm in a Raisin Bran commercial. 2 scoops of fruit.
Hi.
I just want to know, what was your favorite character you played, and how did you feel playing that character?
It's too hard.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
Claire, and I feel
Everybody.
empowered. Thank you.
You know why? When you get a character, it becomes one of your children. And you fall in love with your children. And each of our characters are our children.
Unless they're brats.
Yeah, I literally change my answer to that question every single time people ask me because I'm like, I'll show them this.
Right.
But thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You got it.
We totally did not answer your question at all.
Hey guys,
Hey.
big fan of all your work. Jordan, I think I speak for everyone here when I say your portrayal of Claire Redfield was totally badass. Okay? I was such a huge fan of that because I played the original, and I thought that character was amazing back then, and I couldn't stop thinking throughout the whole game. You and your co-star portrayed those characters so perfectly while putting a modern edge on a storyline that took place in the past. It was brilliant, and I don't think they could have picked anyone better. So, quick question for you. What was your process with your co-star who played Leon? I don't know his name, sorry. Who was that?
Nick Apostolides. Yeah.
Make some noise for Nick Apostolides, ladies and gentlemen. Leon Kennedy.
Let me let Claire first, though, right? Claire first. Okay. Thanks.
Did you guys work together like in the same room? Were you friends? Like, what was your working relationship like? Thank you.
No, for sure. So we had the different campaigns, so we weren't always together. He got to work some days separately. So the moments that we were together, we definitely bonded. So that moment where we're at the gate and I'm like, oh, you don't happen to have keys in those fancy pockets, right? Yes, everyone says there's some flirting. Some of you are Team Cleon, some of you are not. Okay. Well, he's like a brother, thank you. No, we definitely did have a lot of chemistry there, and we did work together really well. I actually spent way more time, though, with Sherry's character, which was Eliza Pryor. So her and I super bonded on that one. So we literally were playing like, you know, knick-knack, paddywhack, like I would say, it was all full on, but a lot of fun with Leon, and thank you so much. That is so sweet, so thank you. Awesome, thank you.
Lightning round.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here.
This question is for Mr. Epcar.
Yes.
But if everyone else can relate, I would love to hear your answer.
Now we don't care what they say.
As you were playing, or as you were voicing Ansem's character,
Uh-huh.
how do you approach this role? Did Billy Zane's work ever influence your work?
I have a quick, funny story about that whole thing, if I may. I don't know if we have time. I got to go really quick. 2 minutes, he says. So no. All right. Well, you have to come to one of my other panels to hear the story. It's pretty funny. But anyway, no. I was cast basically to do this part. I knew nothing about the game. I'd never heard Billy's version of it, and so I basically came in and, you know, jumped in and did it. So I had no idea what he did. But he did 1, I did 8. So, Zane 1, Epcar 8. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Our time is short. We've got time enough for one more question.
Sorry.
What basic equipment do you recommend, like, for any voice acting? Like just a normal mic, or does it have to be like a little bit more like you need a pop filter or something?
You know, there's so many really good mics out there that are reasonably priced. I mean,
it's amazing.
You can get a really good mic for $100.
Yep.
It sounds great.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. What's more important is your acting and the way you interpret the character And you know, as you get along in the business, you certainly can upgrade and get a Neumann eventually or something like that. But you know, you don't need to start out with the you know, the greatest studio in the world. I know a guy who just started out. He spent 30 grand on his studio, and I'm going, you know, it's like, have you even been cast in anything?
Right.
It's like, you know, it's ridiculous. It's like buying a Ferrari and you're not a race car driver.
And also, just a quick tip for those who are just starting out. There is Twisted Wave, and you can record on that on your phone.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's an app.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all about just like they were saying, it's more about getting your, you know, start with auditions, because these are just audition recordings anyway, you know, and as you progress, then you progress your equipment as well, and that gets better. So yeah.
Yeah, it used to be that you had to get really good stuff because there wasn't inexpensive, great stuff on the market. But now, seriously, for $100, you can get a great USB mic and you're done. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's all the time we have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.